Welcome to the Mischief Maker broadcast, where chaos, creativity, and common sense collide. Your host, Joel Freeman, was kicked out of high school in Alberta, Canada. He left home at 17 and hitchhiked around North America as a long-haired hippie and dope-smoking fool. He made a 180-degree change, becoming one of the first chaplains in the history of the NBA. As a professional speaker, Joel has traveled to well over 55 countries. His many books have been published in 28 foreign translations. Pieces from his Black History collection have been seen by millions at the United Nations and many other venues. And now, the Chief Mischief Maker himself, Dr. Joel A. Freeman.
Hey guys, Baby Joel here with a public service announcement. Always check the height of nearby ceiling fans before giving a toddler a ride on your shoulders. How I learned this is not important. Well, that's information from Baby Joel that now my wife and I are grandparents of a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and had to learn that. Just be careful when you put toddlers on your shoulder. Watch out for the ceiling fans. Anyway, it's going to be a great show. We have George Robertson on tonight. We're talking about business partner blues. Oh my goodness gracious. You know what? I put something on. Let me give you a little backdoor or a backdrop on the purpose of tonight's show. On Facebook, on my page, I put up, at the time, I think I had 22 wisdom lessons for business partners. And I got so much response from that. It blew my mind, actually. But it shouldn't have, because over the years, over about 30 years, I've traveled around the world, over 57 countries now. And the 7 words that pulled me all around the world are dealing with people who drive you crazy. And I've worked with a lot of business partners. I've at least a dozen family-owned businesses around the world, and I've learned an awful lot. And that's one of the things that I have done in my life as a time management tool, is that every once in a while I take inventory of where my counsel's in demand. And when my counsel's in demand on a particular topic like business partnerships, I end up writing a book or put something up on Facebook or develop a web page or something like that. And then when someone calls me, it's not only my time management tool, but it's also my crap detector to see if someone is really worthwhile of my time. And I don't say that in any grandiose way. We all have to take care of our time and measure it. We all have the same amount of time every day. And none of us can boast about tomorrow, but we know we've got this moment together. Well, anyway, what has happened is that I developed a book. I've written a book that I don't know when I'm going to publish it. It's called affectionately. It's a very interesting long title. It's called "Best Way to Destroy a Friendship is to Go into Business Together." That's the tentative title right now. I'm probably going to change it. I might just call it Business Partner Blues. I don't know. And speaking of business partner blues, well, I ended up writing a song about this some months back, and it's called Business Partner Blues. And Mel, would you put that on for us right now?
Started out dreaming, hands in the air. Worked hard to build something, a vision to share. Attacked hell with squirt guns, thought we were tough. But business and friendship, wow, it can get rough. Then came the dollars, along with the doubt. Late night worries and figures to count. One was saving, the other was spending. Both knew that their trust in the other was bending. Was it the greed? Maybe just two different versions of need. But there's a way to stand the test, to keep a friendship and not make a mess. Write it all down, be clear and wise. Shake on the deal, but don't close your eyes. Respect the roles, don't cross the lane. Split the profit, split the pain. If trust gets thin, step back, reset. 'Cause friendship's a fortune you don't wanna bet. The best way to ruin a bond that's true is to mix in money and gaslight the view. If you wanna stay friends and make money together, be humble and smart and respect God forever. Respect the roles, don't cross the lane. Split the profit, split the pain. If trust gets thin, step back, reset. 'Cause friendship's a fortune you don't wanna bet. The best way to ruin a bond that's true is to mix in money and gaslight the view. If you wanna stay friends and make money together, be humble and smart and respect God forever.
Business Partner Blues. This is a song that I wrote, as I mentioned, and produced some months back, and it came from my heart, because I wanted to have something especially for business partners who are dealing with some of the issues of life. We have a question or a comment here, and we'll get to that in a little bit from Carl Franklin. But I want you to be looking at the QR code above. And if you're on a laptop or a regular desktop computer, just take your cell phone out and put it on the camera. And then you'll see a little something come up. Click on it. It'll take you straight to chiefmischiefmaker.com. That's our website. That has a link tree with all kinds of information about the music, about the Rossetti universe, and about our guest this evening, George Robertson. Let me introduce George. George is a dear friend for many years. I imagine it's been decades now. And I'd like to have George come on, and I want to introduce him. George, he and I worked together. He and his son had launched something called National HME, where they changed the game actually in terms of durable medical equipment delivery for the hospice industry around the country. An amazing plan that his son and he came up with. I think his son wrote a paper on it in college. And then the professor said, that'll never work. And guess what? It worked incredibly well. And I served as I guess, a senior advisor to George and to the directors, and then something called EMist, which during the pandemic was very popular. Maybe you saw him on CNN or some other shows, and he can explain that a little bit. And then Masvita Healthcare. He's, I guess, what you would call a serial entrepreneur. And when it came to this topic about business partner blues, I just thought there's no one better that I could think of right off the top of my head that could provide us with wisdom. So what the way we're going to do the show tonight is I'm going to share. I have a paper here filled with I think 22, 24 aspects from my book that I wrote, and I'm just going to kind of throw them to George, and at one at a time, and then just have him respond to each one. George, welcome.
Thanks, Joel. Good to see you. Glad to be here.
It's good to see you, and it's a great joy to have you on the show this evening or today. And for those who are watching live, as Carl has done, you can get out your keyboard and type in a question or a comment as the show goes on. Later on Spotify and some other platforms around the world, you can't do that. But for those who are live, that's part of the benefit. Carl is asking a question right off the bat here, George. He says, I had a father and son business with my son. In a father and son business, the son owns all the profits and father owns all the losses. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, Carl, I read that when it first popped up, and I don't know if that was a bad thing, but I can say my son right out of college, he and I joined forces together. We didn't have 2 nickels in our pocket that we could rub together, but we were able to put a plan together. He presented it in college, and that was, 2006. So almost 20 years.
Wow.
And we have been partners ever since. And I just cannot tell you how wonderful it's been with me and my son. And Carl, I hope you were jabbing a little bit on that, because we've shared in the losses and we've shared in the profits, and we've had them both. And anytime you're in business, you're going to have ups and downs, but been incredibly blessed to have a partner and a great friend, and him being my son at the same time. So yeah, it's, I can see, and I've heard a lot of folks say, father-son's businesses don't work. Now, I can go back to my father, and he insisted that we all 3 of the boys, I had 2 brothers, that we all worked with him. And it did not go well with me and my dad, because we didn't see eye to eye. It was a heating and air conditioning business, and I'm more of an office guy, and I didn't like those hot attics. So I had several heated arguments, no pun intended, with my father about working with him. So,
and heating, air conditioning, I don't know of any time you're in air conditioning because you're fixing something that's broken, right? or putting something new in.
Yeah.
So I've got a sheet here with some things, some comments, some wisdom lessons, some ideas. And here's the first one I wanted to run by you. When you're in a jar, you can't read the label. Any comments on that?
You have to have your eyes wide open in any business. You have to know what's going on all the time. Communication is so important in any business, So I thought that was an interesting thought that you had there. When you're in a jar, you can't read the label, because you've got to get outside that jar. You've got to move around, and you've got to stay involved in any business entity, or you're going to get yourself in trouble.
And I think also, to hitchhike off what you've just said, is to maybe invite people like you invited me, to when you're in a jar, to help read the label for you. I remember I was once in a nonprofit, and of course I do events around teamwork and collaboration and emotional intelligence and things like that. So I was on this nonprofit board, and they said, "Oh, let's get together and let's have a half-day team building exercise." And then they all looked at me and said, "Joel, that's what you do." And I looked back at them, each one, and I said, "Nope, I'm in the jar." We need someone from outside the jar to read the label for us.
That's right. Yeah. You can never be afraid to reach out and get someone to come in and help you, with your businesses, and help you read those labels that you can't see. That's, a lot of times things get hidden, and you grow too fast, you move too quick, and you need outside help, advisory help to help. get through the business blues, as you say.
Here's another one. When we get specific, we can become terrific.
Well, specific again goes back to having a plan. You got to know exactly where you're going, set visions, set goals, put it in place. And that's the only way you're going to ever be terrific, by, staying focused and reaching out and attaining your goals.
And specific, many times people go into business and they're just saying, well, I want to do X or Y or Z. And there's no business plan. There's no understanding of taxes, or limited understanding of taxes, and how to deal with the finances and all the rest. And it just becomes when you get general, it's a recipe for disaster, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and thinking about that, even going back to the situation with your partners and talking, with Carl and his situation, you've got to make sure that when you have the plan, the vision together, that you're diversified as well. You can be specific, you have to be, but you have to be diversified and have different abilities and different giftings. Like, for example, my son, he's very gifted in people, relationships, and growing and selling. I'm not good at that. I'm an accountant. I do finance. I'm very good with operations, structures, and following through with the plan. So it takes a combination of everyone working together, but you have to have, different skill sets.
And being self-aware is an important aspect, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And embracing all that, and not looking at it as a deficit or a negative. It's actually a positive once we become aware that we're not everything to everybody.
Right. And you never can put aside humility. I mean, a lot of people, when they get specific and they, are good at a certain level, they've got to get their ego out of the way. They've got to be willing to, humble themselves, move forward, work with the team that you have in place. It's the only way you're going to grow. It's the only way you're going to get terrific.
I remember when we came together around National HME, and I don't know if you remember, we were in your office, and I said, man, I need to have, when I'm talking with the directors, they need to know that I'm not coming back to tattle on them to you.
Right.
Do you remember that? And that I have to have confidentiality with them. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. But when I get sense, and my whole purpose for that was to look for systemic issues, that if one person had a problem, maybe it's just their personality or whatever it is. But if there's another person and another person has a similar type problem, now we're talking about something systemic. And then I can frame it in such a way with you when you and I talked on a weekly basis. And I could say, this is what I'm hearing and seeing, without bringing any names or personalities into it. And then you were able to respond accordingly.
Right. Oh yeah. I mean, it was an incredible time when we worked together and you were able to do that. It helped us really build the company morale, to grow it. And I think you still have friendships that you made with some of those directors over the years. So
the reason I say that is because you had the humility and the trust in me. And that wasn't lost on me at all. In fact, when I experienced that trust from you, it made me wanted to be even that much more diligent in the types of questions I asked and the way I reported everything back to you.
Right.
George Fraser, a friend of mine, wrote a book called Click. And in this book, he talked about dealing with issues in partnerships and in companies. And he said this, he says, there's three things that you look at when you're developing partnerships. Is number one, is it the right chemistry? Number two, is it the right fit? Number three, is it the right timing? And he said that if any one of those three is not working, it's best not to go into business together. And do you have any comments on that at all?
Well, it's spot on. I mean, it's basically what you and I've been talking about, how, just having the right fit, having the right chemistry, like he was saying, in the personalities. It would have been very tough to be in business with my son as long as I have if we didn't have the right fit. Our skill sets were different. And yeah, there were times when, and it usually happened about every 90 days when we'd have a closed door session. We'd go in with the gloves on, but we would come out with red eyes and hugging necks and moving forward. So, you have to have the ability to know your limits and how you fit together, how you're going to work together when the times get tough, how you're going to respond to those times. I can think of many business partners I've had over the years that didn't fit, and it's like, oh, we made a wrong decision. In my earlier years, I would jump into business deals and not go through a process, and I would yoke myself with people that I shouldn't have, and I learned those lessons, and they weren't fun lessons.
And sometimes they're expensive, and it's like tuition for education, right? You have to pay tuition. Have you paid tuition before?
Yeah. So yeah, I have a multiple doctorate degree in that.
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
Yes.
it's something that you can actually click with someone personality wise and just say, oh, this is a fun person to be with, and
Right.
even have the right fit. But, and then to say to them, man, if you'd come to me 6 months ago, I'd been in, or 6 years ago, I would have been in with both feet, or 6 months from now, or 6 years from now, but I'm in the middle of something. And so because the timing isn't right, the chemistry and fit are great, but it's just the timing isn't right. So if any one of those is out of whack or not connected, and that I think can serve our listeners and our viewers well, just looking at through that lens.
Yeah.
Here's another one. We say if you have to hold back talking about uncomfortable topics early on, it'll only get worse over time. Be tactful, but don't hold back early on or at any time. Probe for deeper responses beyond the visionary excitement of the moment. Ask questions like, what are your biggest hopes in this business partnership? What are your biggest fears? What's the biggest mistake you've made prior to business enterprise, and how'd you solve it? And then be prepared for your own responses. Any wisdom you have on that for us?
Yeah, that seems to create a lot of issues in partnerships, because a lot of times it's, especially how our society has become in the last few years, it's like, oh, I don't want to offend them, or I don't want to say the wrong thing. But going into a business partnership, you've got to be able to be open, be able to ask questions and not offend each other. But it's just really critical that you're able to have communication, just like a marriage. I mean, you can look at failed marriages, and the number one thing you can always go back and find out what happened to that marriage: communication. And I think it's business too. I mean, with the three things you're talking about, the timing and the other two things, I think
Fit and the chemistry.
Yeah, the chemistry and the fit, is communication. And that's after you've moved forward. You have to be able to talk, because any partner needs to realize there's going to be tough times, there's going to be disagreements, but you've got to be able to work through those things.
Yeah, it's and here we have Louis. Is that Louis or Louis Kerpos? I hope I'm not harming your name. That's what I see. Business partnerships are like marriage: 50% end in divorce, and the other 50% take a lot of work. I guess that's hitchhiking off what you just said.
Yeah. It's it's hard work. Hard work. Business is hard. If it was easy, everybody would be doing business.
Yeah, it's the dynamics of marriage. Speak to that in terms of business partnership being like a marriage. Are there any specific elements to that ring true to you that you can share with our audience?
Well, if there's no chemistry, you sure don't want to marry her. Yeah. If it's not a fit, I mean, and the timing, I mean, all of those things. And then again, the most important thing that I believe in a successful marriage or business is the communication and having a vision and a dream and a goal. And I think of my marriage and, we just celebrated our 44th wedding anniversary. And has it always been wonderful? No, but I tell you, she's my best friend. I adore her. We have fun together, but we've been broke. We couldn't rub two nickels together. We've lived in mansions and we lived in single wide trailers. And, we've had cars repossessed and had bankruptcies, but we're still together. And I have to say that what's kept us together in the glue is our relationship and our faith with Jesus Christ. And I think too, the Lord tells us not to yoke or be unequally yoked. And I don't think that's just in marriage. I think that's business too. I mean, you have to be able to have the same goals, similar goals. You might attain them in different ways, but it really will lead to a more successful business and marriage is when you have the same goals as far as your faith goes.
I don't know if you ever heard of a gentleman by the name of Charles Tremendous Jones. He was I'm getting some back feed here. I'm not sure if that's coming through, but I was at an event and he'd meet a young couple and he'd say, "How many years you been married?" And they'd say, "Oh, we've been married 2 years." "Oh," he says, that's the toughest year. Once you get past the second year, oh, it's great. Then you meet another couple. And I was just kind of ear hustling, and I was just kind of hanging out because I was just watching him, how he interact with people. 17 years. "Oh, that's the toughest year. You get through this. Oh my goodness, it's going to be great from here on." And I just was thinking about in terms of business, very similarly, there's always something happening in business. Now, there's always some crisis, taxes, all kinds of issues that are happening. And it's so important to keep that communication, as you're saying, and also to keep that respect for each other. I think it's so important, and that appreciation for, whoever brung you to the dance, whoever you brought to the dance, you better leave with that person.
Yeah, one of my first business mentor and dear friend that taught me so much about business, he always told me, and I think you got to meet him, Stanley, Mr. Stan.
I did.
And he always taught me and my son, he said, never forget who brought you to the dance. So, it'll be something that sticks with me and my son for forever because, business, you need help. Your marriages, you need help. You need good, wise counsel, to help you get through those rough times.
Yeah, it's like when something happens to one of our vehicles, we're not saying, "Oh, don't tell the neighbors something's wrong with my vehicle." That would be a bad reputation of a vehicle with a problem. No, we go call up a mechanic and say, what kind of sound it's making, and can you fix it? And we're just thrilled if the price to fixing it is not too great. But I think the same holds true in marriage, in business partnerships, in any type of relationship. That we're bound together in some fashion, either legally or some other way, is to be proactive about it and to say, "Hey, we're going to bring people in to read the label for us in advance so that we don't have to go through those tough situations." Here's Lewis is saying partnerships are like a marriage in other ways too. There's the honeymoon, and then there's the marriage. The honeymoon is short.
Okay. That is so true. I tell you, especially when you start a new business relationship with, outside partners and bring other people in, they'll tell you all these sweet things and, that you want to hear. The honeymoon is over pretty quick, and then it's like reality sets in. It's like, okay, how are we going to handle this conflict? How are we going to handle that conflict? And, you just have to do it. You've got to, buckle down, be honest, sit down, communicate, talk through it, and have some integrity and some honesty during those down times.
We're going to take a break now for a message from our sponsor. But when we come back, we're going to talk about the importance, the complexity, and the potential impact on relationship on anything that's happening in your business partnership and what to do about it. So, Mel, roll it.
What if we dare to believe in the inherent brilliance deep in the minds of our young people? What if our commitment to their excellence knew no bounds? What if one solitary experience could be the catalyst for untold innovations from millions of inspired minds? What if that awe-inspiring experience is right here, right now? Don't allow one child to miss the Rosetta Stone Traveling Exhibit experience, curated by the Freeman Institute Foundation. Become part of a world-changing legacy project, empowering generations to become solutionists and equipped to address the greatest challenges. Your action today shapes a future of innovation and problem-solving excellence for tomorrow's leaders. Unlock the future of leadership today with the Rosetta Stone Traveling Exhibit. Join us. Get involved. Dr. Joel Freeman, the visionary founder, eagerly anticipates your questions, ideas, and valuable advice as we embark on this transformative journey. Contact Dr. Joel Freeman. Text the word Rosetta to 410-729-7800 to request a personal call.
The voice you heard behind that ad from Rosetta Universe is Herman Veal. He is a dear friend, and I'll tell you, if you ever need any voiceover talent, give him a call. If you go to the QR code above, and at the very bottom of that page is a way to contact Herman Veal. The Rosetta Universe, we're transforming this ancient artifact, the Rosetta Stone, into a modern metaphor for problem solving and critical thinking. Go to the link tree on the MischiefMischiefMaker.com website that you see on the QR code. And when you go there, it's the number 1 on the link tree. It's the Rosetta Universe. Take a look at that, and you're going to see all the people that are involved, all the things that we have, all the videos and all the different aspects of the Rosetta Universe. But now we're to go back to our topic, business partner blues. And what we want to talk about right now is the whole idea of communicating with each other in a business partner in about issues that meet the intensity of the situation. It depends entirely on 3 aspects. So if I were to draw a chart here, and the intensity of the level of complexity or importance or potential impact is low, it's real easy to just send an email, to send a text, to whatever. If it's medium, then that's going to take a phone call or a Zoom call. But if it's high, then high level of complexity, high level potential impact on relationship, high level of importance, it is so important to do what, George? Meet face to face, right?
That's right. You got to get together. You got to see that body language. You got to, look a person in the eye. I, just recently had to do this, a high intensity situation, and, had to get on an airplane and go talk and, try to, reason, understand where the other partner's at. And, it makes a big difference to kind of understand and get a better, feeling of what the next steps would be in the situation with the partnership.
And it's a time management tool also, because a lot of things can be communicated just by text and email, right? And don't require face to face, and
Right.
vice versa.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I've been. I remember once with a publisher, I drove all the way to New Jersey, town in New Jersey, and had to meet face to face. That didn't turn out very well. And then another time, we were about ready to lose a real estate deal in Maryland, and I flew all the way down to Winter Haven, Florida, and met with a retired gentleman who owned the property. And I'll tell you, we would have lost it if we didn't go face to face. And I think the reason why, George, is that 7% of communication is what we say.
Yeah.
About 38% is how we say it, voice inflection, decibel level. But about 55% of communication is body language.
Yeah.
And it's so important that if there's a high level of complexity, potential impact in relationship, level of importance, it is so important to say, let's not talk about it right now over the phone. Let's plan. If we can't do it right away and someone's in another state, let's get together as soon as possible. Next Monday,
Right.
Let's get together face to face and let's hash this out. Let's work this out face to face. Let's see. Are virtual meetings as good as face to face? What are your thoughts? Lance Ross is asking that.
I'm getting better with it, but a lot of us didn't really like these virtual meetings, but we were forced into it during the pandemic. And, I'm kind of old school. I still like the face-to-face meetings, but, us right here, we can kind of see our gestures and our actions and reactions, but still, I'm old school. I mean, the younger generation, they may be able to. I mean, what do you think, Joel? We come from the same generation.
Yeah, I think that on Zoom or StreamYard or whatever the platform might be, we can see a lot about a person, what's behind them. For me, you see the world map. I see a picture behind you. And other people, they have books behind them. And you can ask the person, what is meaningful about that picture, for instance, that's behind you, George? And it might have come from a friend. It might come from a relative. It might have been painted it or something like that. And that begins to give some texture to the relationship and some understanding about it and knowing how to approach the situation because of what's behind the person. But I just don't think there's any substitute. If there's money on the line, there's trust on the line. If there's business potential on the line, there is nothing like being present with someone in the same room. They can see you lean in to the conversation. They can see you tilt your head, but it's in 3D. It's not just in 2D. And there's something about that. They can see the moisture in your eyes. If something has touched you or they can see if you're angry and kind of pull it back a little bit and just say, okay, wait a minute. What I'm saying is making them angry and can work through that. But Lance, I hope that helps in terms of virtual. I think both of us weighed in as face to face. There's no substitute for that.
Right.
We have another point here is make sure you place your mutually beneficial basic operating procedures in writing in your LLC or some other memorandum of understanding and intentionally live by it and sign it and both live by it. We have people that are watching tonight from Australia, from Japan, India, UK, Canada, across the United States. There are different vehicles, instruments that can be used that can help to bond things together legally. But speak to that, George.
Yeah, I mean, and it's really important that you have things documented. I mean, we would be hopeful and wish that we could do things like we did back many, many years ago, decades ago, where you could have a handshake and people have integrity, and you could trust a man's word is, as good as his word. But today, in the business world and the fast moving society we live in, it's important. You've got to have those legal documents. And the hope would be in a partnership that your partner don't stray, your partner doesn't have issues and something come up, and, they lose confidence in the relationship, and then they start straying, and then they start violating the trust and are disloyal to the agreement. Then it gets to be a whole new situation where the legal system's involved, and then that's a whole nother show, Joel, talking about that. So, but it's just, it's highly important, I think, for any great successful business to have the right documentation.
I've often thought of it that it's anything worth talking about and dreaming about is worth putting down in writing.
Yeah.
It's like a kite, you have flying high with all dreams and everything, but you need someone that's a string holder and to keep things grounded. And I think putting it in writing helps to keep things grounded, because it's so easy. I mean, all of us, we, as you get on in years, we become better athletes as we get older. We become better this or that, because we have selective amnesia, and we can our ego edits things out that are unbecoming to us and aren't good to remember. And we kind of splice it back to, oh, it was all great. No, this was all wonderful. But I think it's important to put things in writing and then to live by it. But of course, anyone who doesn't live by it, then it's then lawyers know how to get around it. You said heretofore instead of therefore, and so therefore the heretofore doesn't amount to a hill of beans in this document, and that is sad when that happens. But it happens, and I know I've worked with many business partnerships, and like the other gentleman said, it's like marriage, 50% fail. And it's in business divorce is that I've worked with that through that with other partners, people that are in business partnership, and it's sometimes worse than a marriage divorce. It's there's just a whole nother world there, but we won't get into that. Any more thoughts on that?
No, I don't think so. I know we're going to talk about our biggest hopes that we have about business partnerships, and I was thinking about that. And my biggest hope in any business that I've ever been in, or any partnership, is to how it affects others. I mean, are we doing good for others? And my son and I, we talk about different business opportunities, but if it doesn't make a difference in other people's lives for the better, then we don't even consider that business. So that's sort of my biggest hope, and the biggest fear that I have in a business partnership. And unfortunately, I've had to deal with it, is a change in heart from the partner, and dishonesty sets in, and violation of the agreement and the goals and the dreams that were once had, at the beginning. They're not there anymore. So that's the biggest fear I think that anyone would have. And you would hope you would never have to deal with that. But we live in a world where that happens.
One of the things I think here's another point that is part of the book is mow the lawn regularly. And it's a metaphor. I mean, we all have lawns, or most people have lawns, and you know what happens when you don't mow it regularly. If you live in an HOA, they let you know real quick. But homeowners association, for those who have another word for it, another part of the world. But it's a whole idea of mowing the lawn regularly. What does that mean to you?
You got to take care of business. You got to keep the house clean. You've got to make sure the personnel, everyone's working in the right course, in one accord, I guess is how you could say, moving forward together, and the financial matters. You have to do that. One of the biggest issues in the financial matters is cash flow. And if you don't manage that, you don't collect your money, you don't pay your bills, things start spiraling out of control pretty quick. So mow the lawn, take care of business, and keep everything looking nice and sharp, and the sidewalks blown off and all of that. So, it's a good analogy.
Yeah, I know. There's a friend of mine who owns a radio network out in the West Coast, and he has another friend who is kind of a quasi partner in the in the radio network.
Right.
And once a year, they go away for 2 days, and they just hang out and talk and dream and kind of do kind of a past, present, future, look over the past year and see what went well, what didn't go well, the present, how are we connected, kind of reestablishing eye contact, and then the future, looking into the future. And he said it has really helped them in their relationship. And also on a weekly basis, they get together on Zoom or a phone call in terms of mowing the lawn regularly, so to keep short accounts with each other.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, a good example from my standpoint is National HME. When we did grow to a point where we did bring in outside partners, we had to because of the growth. And so we brought in private equity, always is a concern when you bring in outside money. But we had great partners. They were from Atlanta, and every year we would have a 4 or 5 day retreat where all the board, the executives would go off. We would rent a nice house in Colorado, and we would literally, open up the kimono and say, this is what's happened. This is where we're at this year. This is what our plans are. And those really helped to build the company to a successful exit for the private equity group and for, me and my partner, my son, Joshua.
I liken that to the metaphor of the ratchet wrench. You got to do the click, 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 and then you can do the next move, tighten or loosen the bolt, and then you do another click, 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 except you did it annually, the click, click, click. Yeah. It's not a backwards move either. Here's another one in the book. Give trust the same amount of trust you expect from your business partner. Trust must go both ways in equal measure. It's not 50-50, it's 100%. And if you have caused mistrust at all costs, do what you must, be what you must be, say what you must say to genuinely rebuild any trust that has been lost. Any thoughts on that?
Man, I tell you, when you get to a situation, Joel, where there's trust that's been violated, and it would really be awesome if you could sit down and wherever that trust was or broken, that you can discuss it, walk through it, talk through it, and rebuild that relationship. But it's like our kids when we raise our kids, and I remember telling all 3 of my children, once you break that trust, don't lie to dad. But once you do, it's going to be a little different for a while. And so it's a process. It's going to take a while to rebuild that. And it's a hard thing to break trust and to violate an agreement with your spouse, with your children, with your business partners. So I've had to deal with that, and it's a tough situation.
Yeah, speaking of the child metaphor, I remember with our kids, the first time they lied, or the first time they stole something, or first time they're disrespectful. I did not discipline them. I didn't come hard at them at all. I just said, now here's what happened. Do you understand? And we go through the whole process of just trying to figure it out. And they many times would end up crying and saying, "Oh, I'm sorry," and because they were found out. And then I'd say, now, next time something like this happens, what do you suggest that how should dad handle that next time? Right. And, they would invariably say, well, hang me by my thumbs, or, no, not really. They would go like farther than they should have, but we would develop something that would just happen, after that. And so I think the same holds true with trust. That once the trust has been broken, it becomes a teaching moment, and then the next time, we kind of develop a plan of action, a code of conduct, if you will, and that's what I think is so important, is developing a code of conduct between business partners, so that it's proactive, saying, now if or when something like this happens, how are we going to handle it? And then we just handle it, no emotion. No one's mad. It's just, this is how we're going to handle it. And we do it that way.
In a perfect world, that would be fantastic. But you and I know that I mean, unfortunately, usually it's the ones that had the most money and control the rules. And so if your trust is violated from that side, you got egos involved, you've got, pressure involved from outside investors. And so, yeah, again, partnerships, that could be a very tough situation there on the trust issue. So you hope and you pray that you can work through those issues, but sometimes it's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, I think it's George Fraser that told me this one time, or wrote in one of his books. I can't remember. He said, you cannot earn my trust. I
Yeah.
give it freely,
Yeah.
but you can earn my distrust. So it puts the onus on the other person in terms of trust, because I prefer to go through life that way. And no matter how many times I've been betrayed, or if I betrayed somebody else, I mean, we all look back in our lives and we see this whole thing of trust and mistrust, and we just have to kind of work through it and try to figure it out. Here's number 9 in these. We're just kind of meander our way through.
Yeah.
We're at number 9.
Number
We're
nine.
not going to get through through them all, but believe the best first. Always come into every situation, believing your business partner has your back. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, again, you're hopeful. I mean, you enter into a situation, business, and you bring in a partner or partners, and you're always, I believe, excited on both sides and moving forward, and dreams and passions to go forward. But sometimes, and I think you tell me that you get yourself in trouble. You always believe in the best, and sometimes it's like you need to have a little more caution, sometimes, and not get yourself in trouble. But yeah, I'm on the same page with you.
Yeah, the genesis behind that, I think, is sometimes if something happens in the relationship where we hear something about a business partner, let's say, and working with other business partners, and just kind of being the person in the middle, so to speak, and helping them, being a Sherpa, a guide, as they work through some of the miscommunication, is that sometimes I've seen that one business partner hears something, and then they kind of, their imagination gets away with them, and then they come into the first conversation about it like, what the heck are you doing here? And instead of saying, I know that you have my back, and I heard this, but I don't believe it. And then let the other person, say, well, believe it. I did say that.
Usually it's like this. Here's the code of conduct. It's always, he did it, she did it. So we use this one company where here's the code of conduct. It's not my fault. It's pointing at someone else, So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So let's see, where does proactivity fit into a business partnership? I know it's a cousin to believing the best and trusting, but what's important in terms of what you see in terms of being proactive, thinking every morning, what can I say to my business partner? What can I communicate that doesn't take them by surprise? I want to be proactive instead of reactive.
Well, I think it's important to have a set schedule of how and when you're going to communicate, especially with your team. You've got to be proactive, and they know that they're being supported from leadership. And then the partners that, they may be a passive partner, but they still need to know that, what's going on, and there should be scheduled times to keep productivity moving forward. And, if there's ever anything that gets sidetracked, you should handle it immediately and not put it off and let your mind conjure up, well, what's going on behind the scenes? Where are we going next? And I think we've said that earlier in our conversation, it's be proactive, handle things immediately as soon as possible. And depending on the level of the circumstance, whether it's face to face or, on emails or whatever. So, yeah, I think, not letting things set, not letting things stew, will prevent a lot of disharmony.
And part of proactivity, I think, is also like if you are in sales and the other person's waiting for reports or, how are things going? And then the person in sales is like, oh, you're always on my back asking me what about this or that. But if the salesperson or the sales director or whatever is proactive,
Right.
then it's not that scenario set up for the other person to make it awkward for them to always be coming to them and asking them for a report or an update. If someone is the controller or the accounting person, we're not waiting for the other business partner to say, hey, how are the finances? Oh, you're always asking about the finances. That's the only thing on your mind about finances? Well, if you're proactive about the finances, I wouldn't have to ask about it. That's the kind of thing in administration. I mean, look at all the different elements of a business partnership. It's I think the proactivity can help to keep things smooth and go ahead.
Yeah, with technology today too. I mean,
Yes.
there's so much out there with technology that can help productivity move forward at a rapid pace.
Yes. Well, let's see. We got just a few moments left. How can we end? What's the last thing? I'm looking at. The last one thing is have fun. Seriously, have fun as much as possible. Solve problems and laugh about it uproariously once the drama has abated. Any thoughts on that?
Right. Yeah, you've got to have fun, but I'll wrap up by saying that I look through the many years, almost 50 years that I've been doing businesses. I started my first business at 13 years old and have been going ever since. The only thing I've really failed at is retirement, and that's okay because I've got a better place to go, after I get through with this life. But I just want to say, business partners, I think are important. You need them, but it's just approach them with caution, and know the most important thing to me is that I keep my faith in Christ and move, and He's always the center of my life, my family, my businesses, and my partnerships. And so, some partners may not like that, but that's kind of where I'm at.
Well, Jack, you're on the tail end here, but in about 10 seconds, what role do you think AI could have on your business? I think in terms of helping you make reports, helping you craft an email about a situation that is kind of tenuous or sensitive. I think that if you're writing a proposal or something like that, there can be helpful things with ChatGPT and other forms of AI. Any thoughts on that?
Oh, I agree. I was opposed to it at first, but now I use it, and AI ChatGPT is my new friend, helping me compose my Texas emails.
Well, George, thank you so much for coming on the show today. And I would say that the closing thing that I would say on this is pray together as business partners, and because it helps the individual, collective, vertical communication with God will positively impact all the horizontal elements of your personal and business relationships. And that keeps the main thing. If you avoid that, it'll come back to bite you, all that element. Well, thanks so much. And folks, hope you enjoyed tonight's show on Business Partner Blues. And next week, we're going to have Bob Cornuke. He is a guy who has found the anchors to Paul's shipwreck. He climbed Mount Ararat to look for the Noah's Ark. With one of the Apollo astronauts. You're going to be fascinated by the show next week with Bob Cornuke. Anyway, ebity, that's all, folks.
You have just experienced another episode of the Mischief Maker broadcast. Hit the subscribe button. Connect at chiefmischiefmaker.com. Thanks for coming along for the ride. And hopefully, you are now a bit closer to becoming a mischief maker in your part of the world.